Live, trance, and prosper. Hi, everyone. What's a shaking trance? Well, let's find out together. Live, trance, and prosper. Hi, I'm starting over. This is Dr. David Phillips, and today's webinar is the shaking trance. Ecstatic Shaking Trance Systems for spiritual, physical, emotional healing. What does all that mean? Well, today we're going to look at systems related to ecstatic states and trance that involve involuntary shaking, not shaking on purpose. So when I do this, it's on purpose. But an involuntary or automatistic, almost an idiomotor movement caused by the unconscious in this ecstatic state, which can be very healing for physical ailments, mental ailments, and of course spiritual healing or spiritual state of mind. There are a number of systems related to this. We're going to look at a few of them in brief, and a little bit more related to trance work and ecstatic states to consciously bring out this state. Now, there's a number of ways this sort of thing has been done throughout the ages. For as long as man has been man, and probably before, there's pretty good evidence that other species of human have enjoyed this capability, and certainly animals or other life forms, mammals particularly, have a similar mechanism that's built in, this shaking toward healing to remove trauma and other illnesses, mental and physically, but predominantly spiritually or emotional. We're going to look at a few of those. You might be aware of some of them. You might have experienced some of them. For instance, some of the systems that are most likely that you have been exposed to are things like Sacred Ecstatics, which is an area I'm particularly interested in, as well as those who've studied with me for hypnosis. You've been exposed to Qigong methods, not necessarily the Qigong energy systems, but the trance systems associated with it, particularly when I use spontaneous Qigong as a trance work method. As a group, we've sometimes done Ouija dancing and some other things related to this. Now, as far as man has been around, one of the oldest human societies that still practice their shamanic healing pretty much the way they have since they were drawing on caves long ago. The Kalahari Bushmen practice a form of shaking or a shaking healing in which they go into an ecstatic state, the body shakes, and that shaking transfers to another for healing purposes. That sort of thing has been going on for literally thousands of years, maybe as long as 30,000 years or even longer. Man has been doing this sort of thing. Other than the Kalahari Bushmen, of course, we've seen shaking in religious contexts. Ecstatic religions often have shaking related to them. You're familiar perhaps with whirling dervishes. Now, the dervish, when the whirling dervish starts his movement, his trance dance, ecstatic trance dance, is of course a particular form of shaking medicine or ecstatic shaking. They do it consciously, but eventually the movement and the rhythm, they lose themselves and it becomes an autonomic system, almost an autonomic system. It's an automatism. And they may get faster and faster, and their minds commune with the God and that sort of thing. But not just in Judeo-Christian traditions and Islamic traditions. We see shaking outside of that as well. And within Pentecostal Christians may have the Pentecostal Fire. When the fire of the Holy Spirit touches a person, you may see them on the ground shaking and as they're shaking with the Spirit of the Lord, they feel a healing. They feel a oneness with God. They feel all sorts of pretty awesome things that are going on when they experience this. And that's worth exploring if you're interested in ecstatic states, of course, which I am, obviously, as well as if you're interested in things like religious ecstasy and trance work. With trance work, we can do so much good by taking advantage of this natural mechanism. In terms of sacred ecstatics, a anthropologist who has looked at different cultures, and he does it through an ethnographic type approach where he enters into the culture he's studying, would be someone like Bradford Keeney, who participated in a Harvard study among the Kalahari Bushmen briefly, and studied with them and became a shaman and still practices their shaking medicines. He's also looked at African Pentecostal or African influenced Pentecostal practices of shaking with the Holy Spirit, and he's looked at Seiki Jutsu in Japan, which is in some respects related to Qigong, which is, I live in Taiwan, of course, and so I see many Qigong practitioners, and I see many people doing channeling work in shamanistic practices. But this kind of entering into a trance state and having an ecstatic experience has been studied for a long time, and there's numerous approaches to this sort of thing. As I mentioned, I use spontaneous Qigong in my own personal practice, as well as Ouija dancing. Seiki Jutsu, the Japanese practice, the practitioner or shaman, if you prefer, enters into state and begins his shaking, and then he transfers that shaking to another. Now, later on, I'm going to show you a particular hypnotic technique that takes advantage of this propensity of domino effect for the suggestion of the healing shake or emotional shake and transferring to others for some very, very interesting effects. The Bushmen, of course, the whirling dervishes, shamanic Christianity, they all are related to this. If we look at the Pentecostal Fire, it's a Christian manifestation of ecstatic trance state. Of course, some Pentecostals would disagree with me on this, and that's okay. They have a very narrow view of what their religion does. Others understand fully that is the mechanism, that's what's going on. Voodoo practices also have this form that occurs, as do other ecstatic trance dance or even the mojo magician. Now, when we look at core shamanism, for instance, the work of someone like Michael Harner, who breaks down calling down the beast for an ecstatic state. Note the similarities to an earlier webinar that I gave on drawing down or specific channeled states, where we can enter into a trance, allow the deity, if you prefer, to channel through us. But we can also do an artificial channeling where we manifest a completely engineered state through focused experiential trance. Another person who studied all sorts of cross-cultural ecstatic states, Marcia Elide, whose work shows us a lot of interesting things. Stanislaus Grof and holotropic breathing gives us an ecstatic state to a degree. One thing that a lot of these folks have focused on is ecstatic states gained through passivity or inaction, breathing, eye closure, and focus within. However, if we take something like the relaxation response that Herbert Benson has codified, and we flip that on its head to an arousal response. We see that ecstatic states can go through the shaking and through the activity. I've taught hypnosis for a few decades now. I'm very old. And in these few decades, I've met so many hypnotists who've been practicing 10, 20 years who didn't realize that you could be hypnotized with your eyes open, or that you could be hypnotized while walking, or hypnotized while dancing, or hypnotized while moving. They were having lots of noise around them. They felt that they were taught, and they are understood that hypnosis requires that you be passive, that you sit calmly, that you be careful, and that you breathe and relax. Now, the breathing part's really important, but you can do so much more with it. Hypnosis or experiential trance, somnambulism, can be achieved through any active state. It's not the relaxation that's important, although that is a valuable writer state that we often attach experiential trance to. It is, in fact, the inward focus and the allowing of oneself to go into state that is most important. And that's an important distinction to make in that respect. Now, if we look at something like Herbert Benson's relaxation response, which he codified, the Keeney book on shaking medicine has his codification, as well as, of course, Benson's own books. But he codified a method that requires relaxation, eye closure, inward focus. But if we throw it on its head and instead create an arousal response, here are some ways you might do that toward active trance, ecstatic state, healing state of mind. And that would be to always breathe. Breathing is good. Just breathe, okay? And focus on good feelings. Now, the good feelings you focus on preferably would be things like love, compassion, kindness, and as you focus on those, you stay connected to them. Some of you have taken courses with me on the sensual mind ecstatic, and you know that I've taught this same pattern using focusing on sensuality or erotic states. Just breathe in. I like to breathe in the feeling. Breathe in the erotic feeling. Breathe in the sensual feeling. Or breathe in love. Breathe in kindness. Breathe in community, connection. If this is a religious context, you would breathe in the divine, the connection with a particular deity or with the amorphous concept of deity rather than a particular god, goddess, or thing. But focus on positive energies, okay? You could do this sort of thing by breathing in hate, breathe in fear. But too many people do that anyway in their lives. Their lives are focused on hate. Their lives are focused on fear. Their lives are focused on negative things. So there's no real reason to do that in your trance state. They're already in trance outside of the context of this practice. And we have enough hate and fear in the world. So let's breathe in kindness and joy. I have an offset point. I'd just like to get this off my chest, and that is, as someone who has studied comparative religion for all my adult life, I'm so old. But I notice I've met a lot of folks who are very religious people and very spiritual people. I've also met people who are religious people and they're not really very spiritual. And I say that because they go through the motions, but when they practice their religion, they focus on, for instance, within the context that I was raised, which was Christian. I'm from the Bible Belt. And within that context, there's some folks who focus a little too much on the Old Testament wrath of God verses in the Bible. We're going to throw them in hell. We're going to burn in hellfire. And you may have been exposed to those preachers who, on the pulpit, and God smited the enemies of his people as he will smite them today, and they will burn in hell's fire for an eternity of anguish and pain. And there are folks who focus, and that they're in a state of fear and hatred. They don't do good because it's good to do good, and it makes you feel great to do good. They do good because they're afraid of being punished, and that's a really shitty way to lead your life. But that's what they do. So when working on the arousal response, let's avoid the fear. You don't need fear, you don't need hate, you don't need monkeys crawling up your butt. Well, okay, maybe you do. I don't. But you focus on a good feeling, and it doesn't matter what words or phrases, just let the idea or concept come to you. Breathe in that loving feeling. Breathe in that compassion, that kindness. Stay connected. Stay connected as you continue breathing through the practice. You stay connected to that feeling, and then you begin some spirited rhythmic music. Some music, usually it's got a good bass to it or a drum beat. It's got a rhythm. Okay? Turn that music on. Connect to that good feeling. Have that music going. And as you listen to the music and you're breathing in that good feeling, allow your body to move to the music. Okay, human beings are genetically predisposed to respond in a positive way to rhythm, melody, music. We do. Actually, even chimps have been shown to appreciate music. One study showed that chimps really prefer music that's got a heavy bass to it as opposed to other types. But humans respond to rhythm, okay? And as you've got that rhythm and you've got that good feeling, that good feeling coming in through you, wriggle, move to the music. We naturally do that anyway. We don't have to purposely move. We just start swaying to the music. And so as you begin to wriggle or move, having that good feeling coming through you. Now, it doesn't matter if your eyes are closed, half closed, open. All you have to do is just allow yourself to respond. Be in whatever position feels natural. If you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open. If you want to just kind of zone out, zone out. You don't need hallucinogens. You don't need psychotropic chemicals. You don't need alcohol. You don't need anything else to get into that high, good state. All you need is you and your mind focused on that good feeling. Ooh, love. You know what love feels like. You know what joy feels like. You know what peace, love, understanding. You know what these feel like. So just feel those feelings or a particular feeling. And if you're not doing those feelings, the divine's fine. If I want to breathe in the love of Freya, I breathe in the love of Freya, or the gentle peace of Inanna, which would be an odd thing knowing who she is, but hey, she's got it. She's got lots of positive energy just for me. Or if I just want God or Jesus, the Holy Spirit, I can feel their love. There's a loving sensation. an unconditional sensation. Often when I'm working with folks, I'll say, breathe in love. Breathe in that unconditional love from the center of the universe, where all is born. You know the Big Bang? The Big Bang just went boom, and it wasn't a bang of anger. It wasn't a bang of fear. The Big Bang was a bang of love. The banging goes on. And actually the universe is still banging right now. We're all banging. Banging's pretty good. You know what I mean by that. So you just let yourself feel that bang, bang, banging. And let it flow through you and within you as you breathe and you respond to the rhythm and you allow your body to move. You just allow that to happen. Just wiggle. Activate your muscles now. You got that feeling going. Your eyes are open or closed. It doesn't matter. Activate your muscles. Let your body move. You can use big movements. You're on a dance floor and you're just moving around. Folks at a rave know what they're doing. They don't have to take the drugs. Some of them don't realize that. All you got to do is just listen to the music and respond and let your muscles move. Activate them. Allow yourself to move with love and compassion or positive energy to the music, and it happens. Gradually increase, gradually, as you activate those muscles and you start wiggling and moving from head to toe, then you start increasing your rate of breathing. You start it in slow, and as you go into the flow, you start breathing faster, deeper, activated, become excitable. Encourage yourself to tremble, to shake, to quake, to tremble, to shake, to quake. Now some of you it's going to be almost like a fit, almost like a fit. For others it's just going to flow naturally. When I do spontaneous Qigong, here it comes. There it is. My body, particularly my arms, my upper body and my arms, I can do it sitting down or standing, begin to move on their own. There's a flow to it as the energy flows through me. Now for some folks it's just a continuous shaking, shaking, shaking. It's up to you how you set yourself up for this. But it can be a wonderful experience, an absolutely wonderful, wonderful experience. And then you just continue doing this for as long as you wish. At the end of the exercise, when you finished, let your body do what it wants. You may lie down, you can sit, walk, whatever feels right. I'm just going to let myself. Yeah, there it is. Now you can do this whenever you like. You might do it once a day or once a week. If you're really interested in this sort of practice, I encourage you at least once a week, do a little shake. Now these are steps, okay? Focus on good feelings. Rhythmic music. Begin moving. Activate your muscles. Move it from the head to toes. Increasing the rate of breath until you are breathing rapidly. Assume an active attitude toward becoming excitable. Encourage yourself to tremble, shake, quake, big movements. Continue as long as you like. And at the end of the exercise, let your body do whatever it likes to come back to the here, back to the now. Do this whenever you like. Maybe even once a day. At least once a week. And boom, boom, boom. Systematic steps toward what we might call an arousal response. Shaking. Now, why would we shake like that? Well, because we have what are known as biosurvival circuits. Ooh, fancy language. Okay, if you know Robert Anton Wilson's work, yay! Biosurvival Circuits are one of the 8 circuits, but essentially animals, not just humans, animals have been observed. And there's a question, a lot of folks, because humans are interesting in that we have really advanced brains which help us do all sorts of cool things. Our advanced brains and our opposable thumbs help us do things no other animal can do. Doesn't mean we're more advanced than the other animals. We've just got these really cool brains and these really cool opposable thumbs. Elephants don't have opposable thumbs. They may have really cool brains. They've got language. They've got all sorts of cool stuff. But they're not going to build a Costco because they can't. No opposable thumbs. They also don't walk upright. It'd be awful difficult for an elephant to do that. Same thing with whales and certain species of whales, certain species of dolphin. Cool brain, no opposable thumb. Don't have an environment that necessitates construction of shelter and devices. So they never caught up with us in that respect. But because we did these things, our brains developed in a way that's a little different from most creatures. And something that many observers have noted is humans seem to be affected by trauma more than other animals. Now, of course, animals are affected by trauma. When I was in high school, my grandmother had a dog, Daisy. Daisy was one of those little kickable poodles, you know, the little lap poodle. And she was interesting in that she didn't walk properly. She kind of hopped because her back hips had been, well, her spine had been damaged. But whenever I would go to my grandmother's house, and at that time I wore cowboy hats and cowboy boots, yay, I would sit, and I had a beard in high school, and I would sit in a chair and Daisy would immediately sit on top of my foot. Nobody else. She always just came and sat on my foot. And I thought, that's odd. Why does she like to do that? Well, it turns out she would do that as a self-preservation strategy because the person who owned her previously was a man who wore cowboy boots and had a beard. And he would kick the hell out of that poor dog. And he kicked her so hard that she had physical damage. She also obviously had emotional damage because she was fearful that a bearded man with boots might kick her. And so what she would do as a self-preservation strategy was get on the foot so that he couldn't kick her. So I couldn't kick her. Well, I couldn't kick her because I kick a dog. But she knew unconsciously, I don't think this was a conscious thing, that's how you minimize the threat, is you get in there straight. And she obviously had issues. And we've had various adopted pets over the years that have had baggage, obviously from trauma. But most animals, particularly those in the wild, the trauma doesn't affect them the way it does humans. For the most part, many humans develop all sorts of issues related to hanging on to negative emotional issues. If you read the work of Wilhelm Reich and character armor, for instance, you know that negative emotions are carried in the body. This is before he got into other areas and certainly wrote things that were very insightful. Eventually, of course, Wilhelm Reich, as you know, was arrested by the U.S. federal government and died in prison. And different accounts will tell you why he was arrested. Some folks thought he was a communist because he would write about fascism. But he wasn't a communist in that respect. He certainly was in other respects. But he noted that fascism was particularly a horrible political system that dealt with fear and repression. But when we look at Reich's work, he said that we hold this negative energy inside us. And there have been a lot of folks who have noted that animals don't do that in the wild. Even an animal who's been attacked, it doesn't hang on to that fear. It doesn't hang on to that trauma. And they've noticed that many animals, after they've encountered a very horrible thing, for instance, a wildebeest is almost killed by a lion, but it gets away. It goes off somewhere, and instead of, oh, fuck, I was almost killed by a lion. My life is horrible. I'm reliving it all the time. Which is what many humans unfortunately do, particularly those who survive terrible, horrific events, and combat soldiers, for instance, or those who've been through traumatic experiences. But the wildebeest, instead of focusing on that, it goes off and suddenly its whole body starts shaking. Its whole body, everything shaking, like an epileptic fit almost, and then it stops. And it seems calm, and it just walks away. It's a biosurvival circuit. It is an experience that is in the system to shake off the trauma, so it's not kept in the body. Reich noticed that humans will often hold on to negative emotional experiences and they keep it in. Interestingly, whereas because of the scandals involved in his later life in the FDA prosecution and his dying in prison and his persecution by the Freudians, his influence became muted in psychology. Although, if we look at certain massage therapies, it was very much Reichian influence right there. If you look at some forms of massage, for instance, where they do deep tissue massage and they will actually lift the muscle and smooth it out. Some people will experience a shaking when the muscles are no longer as tense as they normally are. They experience a release, and it's often a very deep and profound emotional release. One of my very first clients as a hypnotist was a CEO from a company here in Taipei, and he said that he had stress and wanted to learn to relax, and I worked with him. And the guy was, Taipei personality all over the place, difficult to let go and surrender to the suggestions. I talked to him a bit about his interest. He liked baseball a lot. And so I just went into a pattern involving baseball. And because he liked baseball so much, he was able to just slip into it. And I had him relaxing. And all I was doing was a relaxing pattern. And as I get this guy relaxing, I noticed something weird was happening. I heard like these little firecracker sounds coming from his spine. He's zoned out. And I notice he starts sinking into the chair. And there's these little pop-pop sounds coming from his body. Little explosions. And he seemed relaxed. It didn't seem to bother him. So I just kept going. And I doubled the relaxation. And there's more pop, 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 pop. It really was like a string of firecrackers going off. And I just kept relaxing him. And I did the suggestions to allow him to re-enter the state. And afterward, he thanked me profusely. He said he thanked me profusely. He said that he had never experienced such a relaxing thing. He thought that he knew how to relax. He would take these 5-minute power naps during the day. But all that really was for him was just closing his eyes for 5 minutes, which can have very beneficial effect, but it's not relaxation. And this was the first time in his adult life that he was able to relax. And that tension and stress and anxiety he'd been hanging on to, all that fear about losing his job or about not making quotas or about competition or about horrible people in the place he works. As you know, most big corporations have sociopathic cultures, and he was fearful that he wouldn't be able to hang on to his position. And it was all there, and all that stress got tangled up into his muscles and along his spine, his back. He had backaches that no one could help. Chiropractors couldn't help him. Doctors couldn't help him. But after that one session of hypnosis, just relaxation, experiential trance, all that tension, just those firecracker sounds, those little explosions, that was actually the muscles releasing the tension. And as he released that tension in the muscles, the emotional tension released. Ooh, he had a healing experience physically, mentally, emotionally. Humans have a tendency to hang on to things. I want to keep that. That's my tension. I'm going to hold it here. But animals have a mechanism to release it. If we can activate the biosurvival circuit, we can release things too. There's something called Trauma Release Exercise, or TRE, that was developed by David Berceli. And David Berceli's TRE work. Now, Bradford Keeney also observes the Biosurvival Circuit. If you have an interest in looking at his work, they approach it from very different ways. One is spiritual ecstatics, and one is physical trauma release exercises. Now, the TRE exercises are interesting in that what Berceli does, he doesn't have you go into a trance state. Rather, he approaches it from another angle, and that is a physical activity that activates the shaking, rather than an emotional trance activity that activates the shaking. And so what he has you do is a number of physical exercises, particularly one where you put your back against the wall, back against the wall, and then you bend your legs so that all the weight is right here in your core, and you just hold that for a while. You will get tired, trust me. Eventually your thighs are going to feel like spaghetti. And he's got a number of physical activities that are designed so that eventually your core, your muscular core, is so under so much pressure that when you've got all that built in, you lie down and your body is going to begin spasming. It's like when you've exercised too much and suddenly your arm begins shaking and it's like, what the hell is going on? Why is this happening? I don't know. And the whole body begins shaking. That's TRE, or trauma release exercises. And folks who have done that have reported that in the shaking process, they suddenly release all sorts of pent-up emotional baggage. That's important. Releasing that pent-up emotional baggage. Yay! In fact, TRE is one of the processes currently under study for trauma release for PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder sufferers, particularly soldiers coming back from combat areas. The thing about military service is a certain number of people are killed. Most soldiers come back, they have not been killed, but they've seen terrible things. And a very high percentage of soldiers die from suicide. More soldiers, at least in the United States, die from suicide than are killed in combat. And that's because they've got this really strong baggage. And if they don't commit suicide, they've got PTSD and have suffered all sorts of terrible, terrible issues. And this sort of thing is one of those processes that is being used quite effectively for very good, as is trance work in some contexts. So particular types of trance work. You don't focus on the fear, you don't focus on the bad things. Remember what I said at the top of this talk. Focus on love, healing, goodness, a positive divine, rather than negative things. But TRE is certainly something worth looking at. Now, I've talked about trance work and ecstatic religious ecstasy, or sacred ecstatics, and physical exercises related to the shaking. Now, how does this all come together for trance workers, folks who are, say, hypnotists? If you follow my work in hypnosis, you may be aware that I will sometimes do hypnotic shows. I do comedy shows. And one of the things I like to do is a hypnotic suggestion of shaking. In fact, through experiential trance work, guiding the person into trance states, you can then give the suggestion for that shaking experience. And with that shaking experience, you can attach a positive emotional state. If you wish to do it for healing rather than entertainment, you can also, as you attach, instead of just happiness, and I do a thing called Happy Toy. And the Happy Toy, I'll give the suggestion that the person, when they're in hypnosis, that in a moment you'll open your eyes. And when you open your eyes, you'll notice I've got something interesting. I've got a Happy Toy, and I'll just shake my hand. And when their eyes open, I give them the Happy Toy, and so that their arm and hand, the more begins shaking uncontrollably. And the more they try to stop it, the faster it goes. The more you try to stop it, the faster it goes. And the faster it goes, the better you feel. The better you feel, the faster it goes. The better you feel, the faster it goes. Shit, I'm in it. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll transfer my to them, and then they'll have two, and then legs. But this activity is a classic hypnotic gag for stage hypnosis. You'll notice something interesting. In my hand, I have what's called a Happy Toy. Now, a Happy Toy just shakes and shakes and shakes. But the interesting thing about a Happy Toy is you can shake. In fact, you can shake so much, that the more you shake, the harder you shake, the better you feel. The better you feel, the harder you shake. The better you feel, the harder you shake. The shaking, and you have two of them. And you have two of them. In fact, they go so fast, so fast, so fast. The more you try to stop them, the faster they go. The more you try to stop them, the faster they go. And you got it in your leg, The more you try to stop, the faster it goes. Try to stop it, but it's going faster and faster. It goes faster and faster. Faster it goes, better you feel, better you feel, faster it goes. The more you try to stop, the faster, and stop. But you can maneuver that. You can change that over into all sorts of wonderful healing experiences. I've done this as a demonstration. I've done it in front of audiences. I've also done the Happy Toy as a collapsing series or a domino series in group work. And so if I do it in a stage work, I'm going to have one person get it and then another person. And because it's in a group, and this is how religious groups work, because it's in a group, once one person has it, other people are more likely to take on the suggestion. I don't mean to belittle anyone's religious beliefs by saying that. No, certainly there is a very deep and compelling and meaningful spiritual connection to their context, but that's essentially what the trance-based operator is, that's underlying that. It's not necessarily the overwhelming part of that, but it underlies it, and it's very, very important, because in a group you can do some amazing things. Breathe in, breathe out, relax. This time when you open your eyes, you're going to notice something weird. And that weird thing is that I have something weird in my hand. I have what's called a happy hand. It's a Happy Toy. And when you open your eyes, you're going to notice a Happy Toy. And that Happy Toy is really cool, and you want one too. And when you take it, It just shakes and shakes, and you notice it feels really, really good. And the more you try to stop it, the better it feels, and the more it goes. Eyes open, Nikki, eyes open. This is my happy toy. I want you to just go ahead and go ahead. The more you try to stop it, the more it goes, more it goes, more it goes. Here, you can have two. There it goes. Try to stop it. It gets even faster and faster. It goes, the faster it goes, the better you feel. The faster it goes, the better you feel. Look at my happy toy. Go ahead. Oh, there it goes. Try to stop it. It gets even faster. Try to go down. Try to stop it. It gets even faster. Try to go down. You got them on your legs, too. You got them on your legs, too. Try to stop it. Try to stop it. The more you try to stop it, the faster it goes. Try to stop it. The more you try to stop it, the faster it goes. Faster, faster, faster. You got it on your legs, too. You got it on your legs. Got it on your legs. Got it on your legs. Fallout suggestion. Notice some people get it up and going faster, faster. Notice the faster it goes, the hornier you feel. The faster it goes, the hornier you feel. The hornier you feel, the faster it goes. Faster and faster and faster and faster. Hornier and hornier and hornier. Damn it, and sleep. Breathe in. Both for playful, but you can modify that if you like and do that. Those of you familiar with my YouTube channel, you know that I have a series of imagination games, or on my webpage, imagination games. One of the imagination games for folks just to play with themselves is that phenomenon of imaginative suggestibility, where you imagine your own hand beginning to move and your own hand beginning to shake. Mine is going again. Stop it. Now, I mentioned earlier spontaneous Qigong and Ouija dancing. Ouija dancing is a group work, and that's essentially it. I have a YouTube video where I talk about that and have demonstration of that. But essentially for the Ouija dance, you hold hands with everyone, and you may or may not use music. Since we're using shaking, we're going to want a good rhythmic sound. Drum circle music is great for this. Everyone's holding hands, and then you just release and allow everyone to move through in an interesting way. And give the suggestion. Focus on that good feeling. Breathe in those good feelings. And those good feelings also suggest that it flows through you and moves through you. Please stand in a circle and hold hands. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Relax. Your legs will stand firm. Your legs are strong. But every breath in, energy flows through you. Every breath out, you become more powerful. Every breath in, it's as if the energy of the universe is flowing through you. And as that energy flows through you with every breath, you may begin to notice your body beginning to move. Now, I don't know if it moves forward or back. You will not fall, but you begin to sway. And as that energy begins to move through you, you can imagine, you can feel your arms beginning to lift or fall, lifting or falling. Allow your body to respond to the movement. So wherever your body moves, move in that direction. And you can keep that feeling with your eyes open now, allowing that energy to continue. Breathing in the energy, feel your body moving. Breathing out, relaxation. Feel the power and the movement. And if your arms or hands move slightly, that's okay. Allow your body to follow the movement. Follow the movement. Your hand moves, your body moves. If you sway, you sway. If you sway, you sway. If you move forward or backwards, it's okay. Allow that energy to dance within you, as if the energy is dancing within you and without you, feeling wonderful as it becomes more powerful, and feel the energy. In a moment, I'll count from 1 to 3. At the number 3, your eyes are open, you're fully alert, and you may let go. 1, 2, 3. For, of course, spontaneous Qigong is a Qigong practice. It's an energy system. In Qigong, you usually learn certain movements, and you practice them, and you practice feeling the energy as it flows through you as you move. In spontaneous Qigong, you go into state, and some of you have seen me do this a lot. Go into state, and then I like to breathe in the energy, and as I breathe in the energy, my body moves. There it is, okay? I'm no longer consciously feeling my body. I'm no longer consciously allowing my arms or hands to move. The movement is an ideomotor or automatistic movement. That is, my unconscious mind is controlling my movement. I can feel the movement. I really can. I can feel it, of course. But I feel it as if there's energy flowing through me, a positive energy. And that energy is moving through me and within me. Now, I could imagine that energy as love, or as a sexual responsiveness, or as a connection to the divine. There she is. It may look like this is a practiced movement, and some Qigong systems are built upon someone tending to go through certain movements, and then they think, it's the movement itself that brings on the trance. Remember Bercelli's TRE, it's the physical that brings on the release, the shaking. But it's really, for me, it's the trance brings on the movement. And sometimes those movements feel rehearsed because my body knows what to do. My mind knows what to do. And I'm going to just release now. There it is. Now, if I were doing spontaneous Qigong related to healing shaking, I would give myself the suggestion that movement, and usually for me it just starts in the hands, and then the more you try to stop it, the faster it goes. And that movement can get into the full body and the legs and the arms and the upper body, and I can just feel tension. Just releasing tension, just releasing, just letting it go, all through myself. And then once it's there, now we've got a rhythm going. I can feel that. I'm not consciously controlling this. This is just an automatism. My unconscious is doing this almost hysteric movement, and I can now just let it go, let it go, let it go. And I can feel it. It's like my arms are tired, really tired, and lighter, and I feel the energetic field. Whether it's a real energetic field or not, it doesn't matter. I can feel it, and it can be very, very, very powerful. And that, my friends, is shaking trance. I want to thank the folks who have attended today's webinar. I can see who you are. Well, I don't know who you are. I can see that you're there and how many there are. And thank you very much for attending. If you would like to know more about shaking trance or ecstatic states, or just more from my work, then be sure to click subscribe on the YouTube channel. Just click subscribe, and if you have questions, you comment, send me a message, or just comment on the video. And if folks, either on this or on other things, and if folks ask questions, I may even make a video answering your question if it's something that a lot of folks would benefit from. Sure. I make these videos, I have these free webinars or these experiences for you This is, of course, going out a live stream right now. I will probably check and see if the video that we are recording works out. If it does, I'll probably edit in some more video. It'll be a bit longer for the recorded archive version because I'll put in some examples of some of the things I've talked about, and we'll see how that goes. Be sure to click subscribe, and be sure to like the videos, and check out our web pages, be a member, and do all sorts of cool stuff. Mostly though, subscribe and ask us questions. Let us know you're getting positive things out of these recordings, out of these live sessions. If we think you want them, we'll continue doing them. If for some reason we think you don't, then why the hell am I doing it? But for now, this is Dr. David Phillips saying thank you for your coming, and live trance and prosper. Bye-bye.